NECA Archie TMNT figures we hope to see, Part 1. We're looking for a few good Archie Comics Mutants. Hi everybody, welcome to SpeekyGeeky. As always, I am Mr. Geeky. Today, we are going to be imagining and discussing a possible NECA Archie Comics Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles toy line. Back in July of 2021, San Diego gave us some pretty sweet reveals from NECA TMNT on the Fred Wolf movie, Mirage, and heck, even the video game front with the forever jawsome Armaggon. But right around that time, Randy intimated in a Fooshcast that even though there wasn't anything official to reveal with NECA taking on the Archie iteration just yet, that it most certainly was an incarnation that they would love to tackle at some point. So, for shells and giggles, we at SpeekyGeeky took that and ran with it. And seeing as how the winter months are now merely right around the corner, it likely also means some new reveals are bound to be as well. So now is probably as good a time as any to get those turtle van wheels of imagination rolling toward thinking about what kind of surprises we might be treated to sooner than later. Okay, so before we move forward, we should first back up for a moment and lay down a little background here. In December of 2020, which, yep, already feels like a decade ago, NECA's TMNT brand manager Trevor Zammit sat down with the Foosh and discussed some new TMNT products coming down the road for 2021 and beyond. There were a ton of great reveals, as well as some incredible speculative teases, and we highly suggest sitting down and giving that conversation a listen, as it remains quite dense with a roadmap for what we might be seeing more of as the line continues to grow. We'll plop the link for that right here for convenience. But one of the key topics that caught our attention over at SpeekyGeeky was that NECA would be diving into more comic-facing figures. And of course, that was the moment our minds collectively exploded. Now, Trevor later clarified that he was talking specifically about Mirage with this statement, and which we have now seen a little bit of with the new tease of Fugitoid and the Loot Crate exclusive Claw Mutant Shredder. But at the very least, we are hoping this might move us ever so slightly closer toward NECA's expansion into Archie Comics TMNT as well. At this point, you might be wondering, hey Geeky, did you happen to make a list of which characters you would want to see first if NECA did in fact start down that very enticing sewer worth of options? To which we would reply, well, you read the title of this video, didn't you? So yeah, you guessed it, as turtle fans tend to do, our imaginations ran wild with these new possibilities, and we are excited to jump into some of these with you. With so many incredibly unique iterations of familiar characters and wholly new characters, it was pretty exciting to brainstorm our extensive list of who might fit the bill for who we would want to make the cut. So many, in fact, that in order to do this speculative list justice, we'll have to break them down throughout the course of a handful of videos. So join us now for part 1 of SpeekyGeeky's top NECA TMNT Archie comic toys we'd like to see. Number 10. Cryin Houn, aka Hound Dog. That old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Yeah, well, you can throw that right out of the ring while saying an up-close hello to Cryin Houn's multi-armed pile driver as he shows you just how many new tricks and fellow wrestlers he's picked up over the years. Arguably one of the most unique-looking characters from the Archie Comics Turtles run, he's that wrestling dynamo that our intergalactic wrestling-clad ninja bros encounter while whisked, or rather swallowed, away to Sling and Stump's wrestling asteroid by a giant trans-dimensional cowhead named Cudley the Cowlick. More on Cudley in a future installment of the series. Aside from his fun wrestling costume, extra appendages, and posing a clear challenge to the Turtles, he made multiple appearances in the series, reintroducing himself a second time as a wholly new costume wrestler named El Mysterio, which we're hoping might also merit getting a variant down the road as well. But most importantly with Cryin Houn is that he just looks so dang cool. And it seems we weren't the only ones to notice this, as a potential toy of Cryin Houn was this close to getting made in the original Playmates toy line. But sadly, as with many great characters, he never made it past the conceptual stage. But what's this? Could it be? Yes! NECA has stepped into the ring. Get ready, Archie fans, as this could spell doom for our wallets with how many new toys we'll be buying. Number 9. BellyBomb. On the toxic waste planet Morbus, there is an alien so heinous, so unintentionally phallic, so vicious, he makes Cryin look like just some brain on a tripod. According to TMNT Archie lore, BellyBomb was banished to a desolate planet named Morbus for armed robbery, man-eating, brain-poaching, soul thievery, and if that wasn't enough, he also committed the grievous act of impersonating a deity named Bob. We made our intro to BellyBomb as, mild spoilers, he was a fellow inmate to Cryin and Slash. The bad is that this whole planet appears to be one giant prison that is heavily littered with guards. The good? BellyBomb is prison mates with Slash, who, as his name dictates, is really good at slashing. We go back and forth between which iteration of BellyBomb we want more, pink or blue. But the bottom line is that whichever version we get, we are going to be super happy campers. Fun fact, by the end of BellyBomb's arc, we were also treated to a new unique iteration of Shredder as well. One where BellyBomb has successfully, if ever so briefly, grafted Krang's body in place of where Shredder's head used to be in one of the earliest known depictions of a human centipede. Or rather, I guess that makes that a human Ultram centipede technically? Once again, the Turtles were well ahead of their time. And once again, we have a new favorite variant of Shredder as well. Number 8, Dreadmon. From the moment Dreadmon stepped onto the TMNT scene and subsequently into the ill-fated roster of the original incarnation of the Mighty Mutanimals, we knew we had to have him as an action figure. And surely we would, right? After all, Wingnut, Screwloose, Leatherhead, Mondo Gecko, and Ray Fillet, they all got Playmates figures. Even Jagwar got a figure that made it to prototype phase. So we were certain we'd have Dreadmon any day now. Yeah, he never came, and we were devastated. How can we say we have the full roster of the Mighty Mutanimals if 2 of its primary members are missing? What do you mean just use a Peter puppy from Earthworm Jim and call it a day? That is not at all the same character. So our point is, some of us have waited over 30 years to finally complete this original Mutanimals roster. And if Archie is finally on the table, old Dreddy needs to finally get the love he has duly deserved. Now that we got our soapbox plea in, a little background for those just learning about Dreadmon for the first time. This South African and Jamaican native, depending on the timeline, Red Fox / Tasmanian Devil, found his way to mutantdom in a quite different manner than the Turtles, gaining his mutation from an ancient talisman that also imbued him with super speed. Dreadmon and the other original Mutanimals often teamed with the Turtles in the Archie series and in their own spin-off, Mighty Mutanimals series, to combat various social, economic, and ecology-facing issues, which eventually led to yet another incredibly fun mutant group called the Conservation Corps. But that is a conversation for a little further down the road in this series. Number 7. Jagwar. Besides just being an all-around aesthetically fun to look at character that 100% seemed in line with the type of figure we came to expect from the Playmates toy line, but in this case, never did, Jagwar falls into the category of yet another never-before-made character from the ill-fated first incarnation of the Mighty Mutanimals that is sorely needed and vastly overdue. The hair-pulling, head-hitting against-a-wall frustration of not being able to complete a faction that had not one, but 2 miniseries and which had multiple crossovers with the primary Archie TMNT series cannot be stressed enough here. This was an absolute shame. One we are hoping will have the opportunity to be quickly rectified immediately if NECA has an opportunity to flex their plastic crafting muscles toward the Archie characters. Jagwar is also another one of those non-traditional anthropomorphs hailing from the Amazon rainforest. He found his mutation in a very different way than the Turtles. In fact, if we want to get technical about it, he isn't actually a mutant, but rather a half-human, half-jaguar demigod. Jagwar is a mutant in the same way that the X-Men's Phoenix, while it inhabits Jean Grey, is a mutant. While it's technically true, it is slightly disingenuous in that it sells the full scope of power short. Jagwar was actually set to be immortalized in plastic around 2008, around the time of the CGI movie, which had nothing to do with the figure, but seemed like perhaps a new Global Mutant Missions line was meant to capitalize on the new TMNT property's hopeful theatrical success. Despite the seemingly out-of-place timing, this still would have been an incredible and welcome addition, regardless if he only marginally looked like his comic depiction. But ultimately, this figure, along with the rest of this line, which was said to also include a mutant Komodo dragon, gorilla, and Tasmanian devil, was for unknown reasons left on the cutting room floor. If we had our druthers, we'd see the rest of this never-realized line as well. But for the sake of this list, we suppose we'll be okay with just Jagwar for now. Now. Number 6, Wingnut and Screwloose. To be abundantly clear, every iteration of Wingnut and Screwloose, be it Archie, IDW, the upcoming Fred Wolf version, 2012 video game, needs to and absolutely should be made. Archie Comics iteration just so happens to be one of our favorites in that it seems to best capture that weird mix of accidentally huffing too much guano paired with 1966 Batman-y goodness. Yes, before folks point out that this list is fairly Mighty Mutanimals heavy, Wingnut and Screwloose being the third and technically fourth on the list to fit that very specific group, we know. But when an opportunity to finally see a full Mutanimals roster on our shelf after all these years finally seems within reach, you better believe we're going to make a point of trying to make that a reality. Though featured as villains in both the Fred Wolf cartoon series and the TMNT mini comic, Wingnut and Screwloose in the Archie series are actually perpetual allies to the Turtles, though their relationship does get off to a rocky start with the flighty duo mistakenly attacking the Turtles' blimp because they believe them to be working with Cryin. Though it's fairly unlikely NECA would be able to get the go-ahead to include the Ralston Purina mini comic version additional wings and head for Wingnut, it certainly would be a welcome Easter egg. One other little nugget of information in case you are challenged to a factoid off in the near future is that in this version, Wingnut and Screwloose aren't technically mutants, which we guess would also mean there hasn't technically been a mutant on this list yet. They actually come from the fictional planet of Houn. So, you know, bonus points to you if you can bring that up casually at your next dinner party. Number 5, human form Mondo Gecko. Mondo is one of those characters that just oozes 80 metal culture. His transformed self stays incredibly true to the spirit of who Mondo was before the mutation. And just like Bebop, Rocksteady, Baxter, and Hamato Yoshi, the fact that he was human before helps add layers for readers to draw from toward the new avenues we can explore with toy playability. Who among us hasn't imagined our own stories surrounding these figures' pasts and what they were like in the lead up to the inevitable epic toy wars? Surely we can't be in the minority of folks who used to take human characters from other toy lines and upon pouring slime on them, pretend that they had now made the transformation into their respective mutant form, right? Right? It's all right, geeky. I'm sure there's at least one person out there that can identify with what you're talking about. To be clear, all those other pre-mutation forms of the choices earlier in this list and more also very much deserve to be on this list. But there is just something about that super 80s overtly death metal long-haired Mondo and his pet lizard that just makes us giddy. Number 4, Yumiko, aka Ninjara. Holy moly did Yumiko kick major shell. She was disciplined, she could hold her own against any one of the turtles, she was a graceful and efficient warrior, and as a love interest to Raphael, an eventual girlfriend, not to be confused with his eventual shell-kicking anthropomorphic coyote wife, Mezcal, Yumiko helped accomplish something the other turtles never could. The ability to bring out a side we rarely saw in him, revealing a softer demeanor that was often masked behind a tough-as-nails veneer. Moreover, Ninjara seamlessly fit right in as part of their ragtag mutant family, reinforcing layers of strength, skill, and intelligence to the group dynamic, and providing the lens of an outsider to bring out and magnify the best traits of each of the turtles as well. To sum Yumiko up, not only was she just the best, she brought out the best in others as well. Though unclear when or how Yumiko received the nickname Ninjara, she is another mutant that gained her mutation without the influence of mutagen, and was in fact part of an ancient race of anthropomorphic foxes living on a hidden island off the coast of Japan. Here's a fun fact about Yumiko. Her story actually still continued past her 70th issue final appearance in the Archie Turtles series, with a more adult-geared series by her creators, Stephen Murphy, aka Murphy, aka Dean Cryin, and Chris Allen, through their furlough imprint called Ninjara Seeds of Destruction, which for die-hard Ninjara fans like us, helped to fill the much-needed void left after her departure from the Turtles series and the eventual TMNT Adventures series cancellation as well. Even though the Turtles have come back strong with their recent IDW series, Ninjara herself hasn't yet made an appearance, though there is something awfully familiar with the character Alopex, a white-furred initial enemy turned ally anthropomorphic fox with a romantic relationship to Raph. Number 3, Maligna. Within the Archieverse, Maligna was quite possibly one of the most dangerous foes the Turtles faced. Just like the Borg, she was capable of creating and controlling an unending army of mutant children called Malignoids for the Turtles to face off against in order to carry out her plans of domination. Maligna was eventually defeated when, caution, 30 years spoiler here, her hive ship, ship was diverted into the sun, where it was assumed she and her malignoids all perished. But prior to this, she was a constant thorn in both the sides of the Turtles and the mighty Mutanimals, though it is still unclear how her two generals, Skull and Bean, appeared differently than her other offspring. They were impervious to most attacks and were able to speak telepathically with each other, presenting themselves as worthy adversaries in a handful of situations to the Turtles as well. If we were being sneaky, we'd be subtly planting the seed that we want Army Builder, Malignoids, and Skull and Bean as well. But seeing as we are about as subtle as a shredder falling into a trash compactor, we'll just come right out and say Maligna without her malignoids and Skull and Bean is like Wingnut without Screwloose. Sure, it's possible to only have one, but to do it justice, you need the full package. Though, now we've entered into a sewer hole of additional options we'll need to mention as potential options like Kid Terra and Null, but we'll get there, all in due time. Number 2, Verminator X, or Minx, to his pre-augmentation friends, is what you get if you cross a Puma with the Terminator, with just a splash of The Walking Dead. He comes from a future where he is the apprentice of Donatello, but after a series of self-cybernetic augmentations, it seems to mess with his internal moral alignment and dives headfirst into villain territory, cavorting with the likes of Shredder, Krang, Armaggon, and his Hitler brain in a jar enthusiast work friend, Cryin. Though the Turtles themselves did have action figures based off of their appearance from this future-centered story arc, or perhaps vice versa, Verminator was sadly not included in this offering, with the slots instead going to new cyber versions of Bebop and Shredder, both of which didn't even appear in this arc in their eventual toy depiction. Plus, we technically already had quasi-cyborg Bebop with the robotic Bebop. And yes, we realize that character was based off of Super Bebop from the Fred Wolf episode Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady, but we can still be upset that we never got a Verminator figure when there couldn't have been a more logical place to add him. He even still fits with the cyborg requirement for the line. In an ideal toy world, we would have the ability to swap parts to have good guy Donatello apprentice Minx make his eventual transformation to the dark side with Verminator X, all with one figure packed with his partner in crime Craniac, or perhaps a future Donnie. Number 1, Taksim. First introduced in Archie's TMNT Adventures as a threat to the Turtles, he was intended, in the long term, to be a major villain for the prematurely scrapped Mutanimal animated series, which we will definitely have to cover some additional options from with that series, because holy shell were there some fun ones there. Taksim was a horrifying villain that was part Black Widow, though unlike the full-on spider mutant Spider Bites from the 2012 series, Taksim was not a mutant, but rather an alien from Dimension X. Taksim was unique in that his pronounced spider features seemed to be centralized above his shoulders, making for a very fun and bizarre juxtaposition with his human-esque bottom half. Well, there it is. That wraps part 1 of our top NECA Archie TMNT Adventures characters we hope to see. But part 2 will be dropping any day now, so make sure to stay tuned to SpeekyGeeky's YouTube for more dedicated turtle time. We imagine you'll have some characters from the Archie comic that top your list too, so feel free to join the conversation in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure to sub up, give the video a like, and share with anyone you know who appreciates these types of videos. Also, make sure to check out the description for additional links that lead to some similar expanded content we think you'll also probably enjoy quite a bit. We realize you could have gone anywhere and you chose to nerd out with us, and we appreciate that. So, as always, I am Mr. Geeky, and until next week, Comic Turtle Speaky, keep it geeky, folks.